So yeah, excited to introduce you to all of these women. They've had a very busy week, I'll say, since the last time we caught up. So we have Leila, who is a senior investment manager at Antler, recently promoted. Congrats, Leila.
Thank you.
We have Jo, who is the co-founder from Enrola, and Ashleigh, who's the co-founder from Mynd, and who also just did a hard launch with Mynd this week as well. So yeah, busy week all around, and congrats, Ashleigh, on that as well. So something that we know and we've talked about is that often confidence is one of the biggest challenges that female founders experience and face, and something that they have to overcome. And it comes up for all different reasons. And I think it's a very, very, rooted problem that we have in us. But I would love to hear the experiences that you've had and how you've overcome it. I'm going to throw to Jo first to answer that question.
I think that everyone, male or female, will suffer a crisis of confidence. I think that sometimes as women, though, we give in, and we were talking about this just before we joined, that, a woman won't take action often until she's 90% confident that she can definitely do the thing that is ahead of her. Whereas quite often a man's like, well, I got a 6% chance, I'll shoot my shot. And I think that, actually that ends up, the more you do something, the more reps you build up. The surface area for luck increases. Like the more things you try, the more likely you are to get lucky with one of them working. But also you just build the skill. And so I think that not acting until you're ready actually reduces the opportunities that present themselves to you, but also reduces your skill in being able to take those opportunities, because you're just not building the reps. And so certainly for me as a founder, you don't really have the option of rocking in the corner. You can do it for about 3 seconds, and then you just have to dust yourself off and do it again. And like most things, the more you do something, the more confident you are to do it again, but also the rejection hurts less. And so I think that your confidence becomes more resilient, rather than just fake. You kind of have to fake it till you make it, but actually it becomes a tougher thing, confidence. And so you do end up losing it less the more times you act when you didn't have the confidence, is probably what I would say has been my experience sort of as a founder, is you just have to do it.
Yeah. And is that something that you tell yourself when you kind of experience that little wobble? Is like, just go for it, just rip the Band-Aid off and do it?
Yeah. And I think, we're VC backed. I've got a team. I take the responsibility of my investors' money and my team's livelihood and my co-founders' trust. Like, they weigh on me. And so, if I look at that scale, it's, well, me feeling a bit sort of sad about life versus, trying to do the right thing for my customers, for my investors, for my team. You just don't have the luxury of wallowing in self-pity, frankly.
Yeah. Love it. And I think that's something we spoke about is like, if you don't ask, you don't get. So you have to really put yourself in that situation and just go for it. And
yeah,
if somebody says no, it's like, okay, well, I'm in the same situation I was before I asked. So what is there to lose?
Yeah, spot on. And I do think your ego becomes, like, I think both confidence and ego become more resilient. It just becomes less personal.
Yeah. Have you experienced anything that has like given you a piece of confidence that you kind of come back to and remind yourself of?
That's a great question. I think I don't think that there's any one event. I think that it really is accretive, that every time you get a win, it fills up the bank, and it fills up the bank, and it fills up the bank. And some things make a bigger deposit. When we went and raised money nearly 2 years ago in a tough capital raising market, doing an edtech marketplace, and as 2 women, like, that was a pretty big deposit into the confidence bank. But I think it is important to own your wins, and I think that is something that again, sometimes women, we take full responsibility for our losses and we attribute our successes to other people. And I think that, when you nail something, when you close the deal, when you hire that incredible person, when you hit the monthly target, when you raise money, being like, I did that, like I nailed that. I think that that's really important, instead of the good things were luck and other people and the bad things were all my fault. Like you got to give yourself the props.
Yeah, I could see us all nodding like, yeah, I've been there.
I do that every day.
Yeah. What about you, Ashleigh? What has your experience been with confidence and those moments of, I guess, low confidence, and how you kind of give yourself a boost to go for it?
Yeah. I think that confidence as a founder just mimics the highs and lows of being a founder naturally. The highs are super high. You're, as Jo was saying, I really echo a lot of what she said. It's such a high when you get a big win or get more customers or whatever that looks like, and the lows can be pretty low, and you really kind of go on that roller coaster. And I think confidence follows that, especially, in my circumstance, it definitely has. And I think knowing that has just helped me with my resilience and also building my confidence, knowing that, as Jo said, it's not personal, it's a lot of business. And so when it's high, enjoy the high and feel confident that you worked really hard, you've built something, you've done something that's been that moment of success. And then when it's low, you go, okay, something didn't work out, but having the confidence to boost yourself back up to then go back to the high. Sometimes easier said than done. But with that as well, what I was just thinking about is that so many people don't even try. The fact that we're in the arena, the fact that we're trying to build something for whatever reason it is that you're trying to build, you should have confidence in that, because a lot of people don't. And you've put yourself out there, not only your time and financials and effort, but it's vulnerable, and have confidence in that vulnerability that it will translate into something amazing.
Yeah, I love that. So reminders that the hard times are temporary and just part of that dip that will come back up again in the roller coaster that it is to be a founder. And just reminding yourself, as Jo also said, of those small wins, and to be like, well, actually I did this thing, and if I can do that thing, I can do the next thing. So let's just get back into it and go for it. Leila, you of course see founders across a wide scope as well. What are some of the trends that you see with female founders and how they manage, I guess it's confidence and their approach to risk?
I've been thinking a lot about it, because there's nothing that they feel that I don't feel as well. I also am on a male-dominated field, and I also struggle with the same points that they do. So we help each other a lot. But I've been thinking about it, and I put 3 points together. One is seconding what Jo and Ashleigh mentioned before. We tend to overanalyze situations. We just apply for jobs or for investment opportunities when we feel absolutely ready, while men tend to take more risk. And there's so much points of data that points out to that, right? Is that if they had 6 out of 10 of the qualifications as for a job they apply, women need not 9 out of 10. And in early stage, that's just not a good trait, because early stage is not about being ready, it's about being willing. And it's not the confidence that comes first, it's the movement, right? The traction. And based on that movement, you get more and more confident as you go, and that builds up. So that would be the first point. The second one is that reading the friction as a personal failure, that has nothing to do with your self-worth. And that's something that we all probably do, right? And I think some men would relate to that as well. So I feel that it's really important to separate those two. And I read a book from a Brazilian model that is very famous, called Gisele Bündchen. And one of the things that she says is that as models, people criticize them in their faces. So they go, oh, she's fat, or her nose is not great. And they have to just stand there, and they're like, wow, I'm here and you're talking about me this way. And what she learned to do to cope with that is that she has this persona on the side, that she called her. So when they were saying anything bad, they were talking about her, not about me, Giselle, a mom, a friend, or whatever. They were talking about her. So I've learned how to do that quite well in my career. And I think that is the biggest piece of advice for anybody that is starting a company or a career. Whatever piece of criticism that you have is not about you as a person, it's about that specific task or idea. And it's easier said than done. It's a lifelong exercise, but it's a worthwhile one.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. I think we see even more and more of that now with the influencer world, where people have to become comfortable with separating, like, okay, that's my public facing persona and ultimately a brand. And if I get hate online or I get hate from whoever, they don't actually know me. It's not about me. And the same feedback for founders as well. It's, as Ashleigh said, it's business, it's not personal. So it's like choosing when to take it on board, when to ignore it, and when to act on it as well.
And what can we learn from there, right? Is that, are you saying something that I can use as feedback and I can actually use? Or you're trying to teach me something that I know more than you, therefore I shouldn't listen to you, and therefore I shouldn't care about what you think. So that's kind of like the main difference that we need to think about.
Yeah, it's like, okay, what's true in this situation? Like that, I'm more qualified than the person sharing this feedback with me, so I need to come back to that. Or this is actually really solid feedback from a potential relevant investor, partner, user, whoever it is, and I need to ground myself to take that feedback on board too.
Yeah.
Amazing. I would love to continue with you, Leila, just on the topic of the reality of fundraising as a female founder. One number that gets thrown around a lot, and it's something that we have spoke about as well, is that 2% of venture capital funding actually goes to startups led by female founders. I think that number definitely has layers to it of where it comes from. And there's a long process required to, I think, increase that, starting with how we teach little girls on what they can be when they grow up and how they can approach different situations, and showing them pictures of successful business women, not just businessmen. But yeah, would love to get your perspective on that. Like, who's applying, how can they change their application or get a stronger result from their application? Yeah, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, that number bothers me so much because I deeply care about it, and I work so hard to get more women through the funnel. We see that the problem for us, we are a very early stage investor and we have problems with the top of the funnel. So I was putting some numbers together, and we haven't finalized this yet, but we think that across the last 12 months, we had 6% of female applicants. So if they're not even applying to it, and we are the first investor in the whole ecosystem, how are we going to see change in the later stages, right? So I feel that we sit in a place that we can drive this change, and I want to drive this change, but I also want them to have the confidence to apply. And to your point, Leah, there's so much that comes down to the fact that they are not applying, right? And the first one can be because the type of profiles that we look for early stage founders, it's normally a commercial person, which is normally male dominated, right? There will be like a sales, who is starting sales, normally men. And then the other side, we have the technical founder that is also male dominated. So it kind of translates to early stage startups being male dominated, which translates to late stage startups being male dominated. So there's no one person or one company that can change that. It has to be the private sector, VCs, government, and education, and all of that working together. But I feel that what we can do right now is just how can we get like really good at those two skills, so that we can and apply more for Antler. Like it costs nothing to apply. And in webinars and in events like this, we always talk about what we want to see. But the main thing is obsession. Like if you're obsessed about something and if you love something so deeply, you're gonna become good at it. And that's what we want to see. And that's no school can teach you that, right? So you can do it right now.
Yeah. If you're obsessed, you'll be able to handle any conversation about that topic, no matter what it is, or just be really curious to find out the answer after that conversation as well. Oh, I didn't know that perspective. Let me go and figure it out and find the truth to that. I guess one positive from what you said is like yeah, even though there has only been 6% of female applicants, if 2% of the funding is going to those female applicants, then that's a like 1 in 3 chance that female applicant is getting it. So yeah, I guess that's maybe a reminder is like, I have a 1 in 3 chance of getting this if I go for it. If that's the confidence and thought that you need in your head to just go for it, then yeah, I hope that helps.
It's really important as well that, to your point, like how we frame that to ourselves. I know the numbers don't look great, and I'm not gonna pretend they are good because they are not. But I feel that if we just focus on that, we feel so defeated. Right? We're like, I'm working so hard, but what is the point? Because I'm a girl, and nobody's gonna invest in me. And instead, we just feel, okay, what are the things they want to see? I know that I'm really freaking good at this topic, and I'm going to be the best founder that they see in this specific topic. And that's what is under my control.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably only now, really, we're going to start to see girls turn into women, but girls who were told that they could be more technical. They could work as a scientist. They could work as an engineer. They could work in business. So hopefully those numbers start to take up naturally as a result of that as well. Joe, would love to hear your experience because you've obviously had a successful raise through Antler, but also outside of that, like what has been your experience with investors?
We went through the Antler program, we got the initial investment, and then we went and raised another 800 odd about 12 months after that from, thank you very much, Antler, for coming on board again, but also from a high net worth individual and 2 other venture capital firms. My experience, I think I'm weird because I loved the experience of fundraising, and most founders talk about it as that's sort of horrible experience, whereas I'm like, hey, I just get to talk about me and like my vision and what we want to do, and like they have to listen. It was great as far as I was concerned. I found that the top of the funnel was really open for a woman, and I've had people ask me since, oh, do you think it was harder for you to raise capital than and we're a 2 female founding team by pure fluke. I just happened to find the one mid-40s female software engineer that exists in the world, and she just happened to find me, and neither of us were looking to be a double female founded team, but here we are. And so, I would have to say that my experience, I didn't have a negative experience, but I also only know mine. Yeah. So I don't know whether if I'd been Joe with an E and a penchant for hoodies and runners instead of dresses and earrings, would that have been a different experience? But I would say that I certainly, didn't feel any form of overt sexism, any form of sort of confusion as to what we were building. And I think that there was an advantage. Not really. EdTech marketplaces are not exactly wildly popular in VC land, so that was probably my biggest handicap, was that I was building an EdTech marketplace. But I think that perhaps it wasn't a woman's business may have also helped. And again, I don't know for sure, but if I had been building a menopause app or, solving a uniquely female problem as a female founder, would that have been a compounding effect? Because most of the people that I spoke to who were early stage, they weren't the Leilas, they were young and they were male. And so would they have been able to understand the problem that I was trying to solve, both generationally but also from a gendered perspective? And so I do wonder that. And I don't know the answer. I think the one thing, and it comes back a little bit to the confidence piece, is understanding the risk appetite of early stage investors is actually very high. But that means you need to come with massive ambition. And so that comes back to that confidence piece where I would talk about what I was confident that I could deliver, rather than if everything went right and the world did nothing but sprinkle luck on me, what was possible. And so actually, for the first time in my life, I was seen as not ambitious enough by some investors, whereas I've normally been seen as overly ambitious. And I think really getting my head around the difference between what am I confident that I can do versus what is possible, but probably quite improbable, and actually selling the what's possible rather than the what I'm confident. And I think that some of my early stage conversations, my vision was too small. My description of what we could do was not ambitious enough. And so that, I think, links back to that confidence, and we only want to promise what we're confident we can do versus kind of the miracle. But actually early stage investors want to know what the miracle looks like, and they will then discount it. Like, they discount it to go, well, there's only 1% chance of this happening. So if you're only giving them the 20% and then they're discounting that by 99%, what's left isn't very sexy for an early stage investor. So you've got to give them the 100% that they can then discount, and what's left is still exciting. And so really getting my head around and understanding that dynamic, that you're not delivering an annual forecast, you're selling a dream.
Yeah.
Was important for me.
Sorry, everything seems to come back to that confidence thing. And like, as Leila said, it's often a commercial skill or sales skills. And sometimes you need to oversell, dare I say, for that to be, for other people to have the skepticism, like, let them have that. You don't need to have that, or give it to them up front.
Yeah. It's the one world where over-promising and under-delivering is expected.
Are you saying you're going to under-deliver? I'm sorry.
No, Leila. We're going to over-deliver.
And Ashleigh, I'm really keen. I think your experience is a really unique one, because you have a male co-founder. Shout out to Dean. Have you noticed differences in, I guess, how people maybe speak to you or view you in comparison to Dean? Like, how have those conversations gone?
Yeah, it's really interesting, especially also just to note, Dean and I are husband and wife. So we are very connected, work together, live together, all the things. So with that, I think when dynamics happen in a workplace, it's like a very interesting thing to observe and witness. There's two times where I can recall how different we've been treated. One was, we were in front of a very successful businessman, an older man, and he would ask questions and I would be responding, and he would be looking at Dean. He wouldn't look at me. And it was actually Dean and his responsibility to turn to me, to listen to me, to actively change the conversation. That was definitely like one of those confidence roller coaster moments where, you're really picking yourself up, but it's happening quite often in one conversation. But because, again, obviously not saying anything about being married, or if you weren't married, like whatever it is, but Dean and I have a very equal and respectful relationship, that if I'm talking, he's going to be looking at me, and that changed his perspective. But it angered me so much that that's what it took to change the conversation. So that's one example. And the other example is that when anyone talks about sales or finance, they look to him. And even though they are accurate, he is sales, finance, operations, I am still a co-founder. I am still across all of those things. We work on these things together, even though I am more vision and brand and the psychology space, and he owns those areas. We are across all of it. We are co-founders. We know exactly what's going on in our business. But the natural reaction for quite a large amount of people to turn straight to him when they ask about the finance has been pretty obvious and eye-opening. As if I wouldn't have the knowledge, or I wouldn't have the metrics, or whatever it may be that they were looking for. But other than that, I have had also then amazing conversations with people who are open and inquisitive and treat us very similarly. If anything, maybe they think I'm more of the expert in the space because it was built on me and I have the expertise in an area. And I think that when those conversations happen, I come across much more confident, I'm much more forthright, and I maybe drive that conversation even further to maintain that relationship that we're having.
Yeah.
So I've tried to pull that energy into conversations where I may not as feel as comfortable. Or if people are talking to Dean, I'm like, I'm going to get in there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, because I would have been of the same mindset, I guess, that I think you are the expert or the thought leader, at least when it comes to Mind. And I know that Dean, of course, has thoughts and ideas to bring to the table, but a big part of Mind's story is your story and your experience, and it's so frustrating that you're almost dismissed in some of those meetings and not considered an expert when you have such a personal connection to the platform as well. It's so frustrating.
And even though, like, just on that, like, even though mental health is not women's focus, it's really interesting to see the emotional lens put on to me as a woman, because it was based around my experience of like, emotional, is it scalable or is it a big problem? I'm like, mental health is one of the biggest problems that we have. You just have to Google it, but it's still met with like female emotions put into a bit of a box, and I have to work a bit harder, I think, to unravel that and make sure that it's coming across as a global issue, not just a personal or a female issue.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. It's experienced by everyone. Women maybe talk about it more, but we also see numbers where, because men don't talk about it enough, there's more drastic impact or effects on their mental health because they don't talk about it. And then women are dismissed for being emotional if they want to talk about it, which is a whole other...
We could spend hours on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that is just wildly frustrating, and you can see it in black and white as well on how those conversations are approached. I want to talk about the like product and pivot experience that you've had. Obviously, mental health is a sensitive space. How did you go about getting users' trust and building that in connection with Mind's brand in the product?
Yeah, interesting. Look, I think first and foremost, I am the Mind user. Like, I think obviously being based on my experience struggling with mental health, again, I won't go into it too much, but I had an experience of trusting so many different apps and feeling really disheartened. And so how was I going to change that? And that was putting myself in the center of it, which is a super vulnerable thing to do. But, every time I spoke to anyone, I had to share my experience. It was a really challenging, and still is really challenging, to talk about multiple times a day. But it builds trust. I know what I'm talking about because I was there, and I'm not unique. I'm not special, and multiple people have this experience, and our data backed that up. So that I guess, talking to businesses, there was a trust there with what we were building and the traction that we were getting. And yeah, as I said, just putting up on social media, I put up videos and spoke about my mental health, and the amount of messages that we get saying the words brave, strong, thank you, like a lot of thank yous. And I'm like, I'm saddened that it's a brave thing. I'm saddened that it's a strength, because so many people still go unspoken around what's going on. And we're trying to facilitate that conversation, and then facilitating it builds trust. So we got all different people for our campaign to talk about their mental health so that everyone feels seen in that journey. And that's exactly what we've seen. And then from a psychology side, I am in my master's of psych, but I'm still not registered. So we have a clinical psych. Her name is Rach, and she oversees everything that we do from a clinical lens. And that also builds trust. So in all honesty, we actually don't need her from a legal standpoint. There's no requirement for it, but it was extremely important to me to have that clinical backing, to have that clinical understanding, and even just in the language that we spoke to people, really meeting them where they're at, that also builds trust, which you don't even realize. You speak to somebody in the state that they're in, the language that they're in, they feel seen, and therefore that builds the trust there.
Yeah, it's creating a human element to the business. And I think something that we speak about a lot in product is that people want to feel like a product is made for them. So if they can relate to your experience where they feel like other products have let them down and feel like they can find themselves in your product, then that's such a great thing for users as well, to be like, oh, this is made for me. I'll come back to this every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Jo, I know that you at Enrola have experienced a major pivot. What was that like? What was that journey? How did you decide, okay, this feedback, like what we spoke about earlier, this feedback matters, this feedback doesn't? How did you manage those conversations?
For us, it wasn't really sort of feedback. So Enrola was born as an education marketplace. So my background was iSelect, and then I ran an education provider, and I was like, it's really hard to work out what good quality education looks like. Comparison is a great thing to help people with decisions. I'm going to build that. Maybe I'm just not very creative, and that I just mushed the two bits of my career together. That's the business that Antler funded. It's the business that we ended up raising $1 million for. But about probably 7 or 8 months into commercializing that business, and we were generating revenue. It was technically going really well. We started to hit sort of what you'd call headwinds, and I won't bore you with, there were some regulatory changes here and some government funding there, because actually I think that what the issues were are less relevant than the response. My background, I've been a CEO, I've been a COO. I just try harder. Like if something's broken in an existing business, you don't just throw the business out the window. You diagnose what's wrong and you fix it. And so I spent months just trying to figure out, well, what's wrong and how do I fix it? Do I just work harder? Do I try a different ad strategy? Do I look at different channels to market? But actually, an ongoing business, a 10-year-old business, you've got quite a lot of data. You've got a bit of runway to figure out, well, what's this thing that's broken and so I can fix it. And in a startup, that's not true. And really, we got to the point where my co-founder realized before I did that actually just trying harder wasn't the problem. Like a lack of effort and a lack of intellect or a lack of drive, that wasn't the problem. It wasn't that we were too stupid or too lazy to solve it. It was that it was an unsolvable problem. And so I think she really realized that before I did. And we ended up having some pretty tough conversations. And again, guilt, it was my idea. I'd taken people's money. I'd taken her on this journey and now it's dead. And I really struggled to see what would be next, faced with the grief of having to kill that first sort of baby. And talk about confidence, I was not brimming with it at that point. We called it the trough of despair, is the name that we give it internally. But I think the biggest data point for me was that it just sucked. Like it wasn't energizing anymore. It sucked. It felt like we were scratching in the dirt for scraps.
Yeah.
And I think that at an early stage of a business, it's not that it's easy, but if you feel like it's not fun, the prospects of success are nothing, and you're scratching in the dirt for scraps, then actually you need to kill it. And so we did. And so we've evolved from being literally a B2C to B edtech marketplace into, if you're not building AI agents, what are you even doing right now? So we just jumped on the AI agent bandwagon. But actually, we solved a problem that I'd experienced my whole life, which is when you're selling complex products to consumers, of which education was one, and you're reliant on buy a lead and then get a salesperson to talk to that person to help them make the decision, people don't answer the phone anymore. And so now we build sales agents that engage via SMS, WhatsApp, sort of any sort of text-based communication. It's a problem that anyone runs an outbound sales team has, and so it's really easy to be like, hey, this problem, yeah, I got it. I've got the solution for it. And there's a very different sensation in building a business where customers love you. Like, it's a hair on fire problem for them. And so when you solve it, they're like, thank God you've come along. Instead of like, okay, well, we'll give it a try. There is a very different feeling to building a business that has tailwinds instead of headwinds. And I would like to pretend that what we're building was a deliberate decision, but actually we were going to build sort of the customer experience platform for education. And this was just the first feature. But you talk about feedback. The feedback was so strong on this. Like, I'd put up a LinkedIn post and somebody called me. His number wasn't even on my phone. Ironically, I answered, given I'm building a product for people who don't answer the phone. But anyway, I answered the phone. It was on the 4th of September last year. And he said, this thing, can I have it? Can I pay for it? And I was like, well, it doesn't really exist yet. And he goes, right, let's launch on September the 18th. How much does it cost? And I was like, I don't know. It literally doesn't exist. I don't know what it costs. But I was like, we're talking about sometimes you just have to say, F it, let's do it. And I was like, all right, done. So I've invented a price, and we went live on September the 18th with this product that didn't technically exist other than for ourselves 2 weeks earlier. And that's, I think, the difference of being pulled, instead of just thinking that sheer will get you there. And so there was such a response to this one thing that was just going to be a feature of a bigger product that it's now become the product.
Leila, question for you connected to that topic as well is, obviously Antler supported a pivot there. So how generally do you view pivots and changes, and what do you look for as signals to encourage and back a pivot?
I don't see it as either good or bad. It's part of the process as much as it is hiring people or sending emails or posting on LinkedIn. It's just, it is going to happen. What we back, especially that early, is their ability to figure things out as they go. So Joe was like, the industry is changing, the clients are not responding as quickly, and there are a few regulatory changes coming our way. So this is what I've decided. We don't pretend that we know more about founders in their industry. We just listen to them and try and navigate with them. But yeah, we have over 150 companies in the Australian portfolio. I've never seen any of them that hasn't pivoted.
Yeah, they all come out with something different at the end.
Always.
Yeah.
And all of our investors. So we sort of told them rather than asking permission. Now, there's certain elements in a shareholder agreement where they could have said no, but the feedback from nearly all of them was, well done for making the decision fast. We'd be surprised if this hadn't happened, and carry on. So it was, I was terrified to have those conversations. But actually, again, the appetite of early stage investors is pretty different to private equity, or pretty different even to angels, when you've got the professional VCs. It was more of a good job than a, how did you manage to completely murder your whole business model 6 months after we gave you $800,000, which is what I had expected. The response was going to be like, you tricked us, but it wasn't that at all.
Yeah, I think it is something that founders have to be comfortable with and open-minded to, is like, hey, somebody's going to call you out on, maybe being wrong and needing to change direction, and really you need to lean into that when the time is right, obviously, and it's relevant. I'm conscious of the time. We have 2 minutes left, so we might just answer 1 or 2 questions from the chat, if that's okay. Yaz has asked a question for Leila. So what Leila said about commercialization is very interesting. There are a lot of male tech founders who don't have that background either. What traits of commercialization are desired by investors, and what KPIs do they use to identify those in founders?
That's a great question. And there's not one answer that fits everybody. I'm just going to say, well, in a top level, this is what we look for, is one person that can build, one person that can sell, right? So if the person that can sell is somebody with a technical background as well, and if the solution they're selling is to technical people, that wouldn't be a problem, right? So if there are two technical people selling to technical people, that would be fine. But if the same technical person is trying to do a B2C offer that they have to be in front of the camera and analyzing like a B2C market, probably they would find it really hard. Probably they will struggle, and probably some other people in the market would be better than them at that. So that's what we analyze. When it comes to KPIs, I have a full article on that on my LinkedIn. So if you have a look, that there's a newsletter linked, what traction looks like when you're pre-revenue. But I think the lazy short answer here would be market validation. You need to have at least LOIs, or people normally, especially in Australia, that is very non-confrontational, be nice to everybody. People don't say if they're not interested. So it feels like everybody loves what you're building. What we tend to do is, let's force this a little bit and let's see if they commit. So commit can be pre-sales like Joe did. It can be LOI. So if you pull this off, I commit to pay X amount of dollars. It can be putting a wait list, but this is what we want to see, is that people that are your ICP are being convinced by your offer.
Yeah, I think the world that we are in now means that traction is more important than ever, really. And then a lot of other things as well. It's like you can have the coolest idea, but if nobody's willing to pay, or at least say that they would associate their brand with your brand, then what good is it?
That builds your confidence as well. Just saying, when you go pitching to investors and you say, actually, people are loving what I'm building, and this is the amount of commitment that I have,
Yeah.
the power dynamics change a little bit.
Yeah. We are at time. We've actually gone over a minute. There are other questions in the chat. I don't know if you guys are free for another 5 or 10 minutes to answer those, or else we can note them and come back to them later.
And you can do it quickly.
Yeah.
And all can talk a lot, but we can try our best not to.
Yeah, I'll pick a few. Yvette says, what sort of evidence or data did you find investors responded most positively to? Do they seek specific things? Do you need to double down on evidence to counter the perception that men are more commercially minded? I feel like that's aimed at you, Joe, because you spoke the most about your experience with investors, but maybe Ashleigh as well. I'll let you guys answer that one.
Look, I really just think, to echo Leila's point, if you can get somebody to give you money for something, that is the single best bit of evidence that you can provide. Typically saying to an investor, oh no, you're wrong, like, oh, we don't think this will have market traction, or we think these are these concerns. If you say, oh, I think you're wrong, even if you do on the inside, that's actually a piece of confidence I would not recommend you exert. Going and actually doing the thing, I think, is the most important. And I do think that revenue is, whether that's just for a proof of concept, whether that's an ongoing contract, I think that I joke that my job is to get people to give us money, and whether that's to use my product or to own a percentage of my company, I don't really care, but that's my job, is to get people to give us money. I think that I had a slight advantage in that my background was very commercial. So when you sort of look at my background, I had the commercial chops, and so I never really felt that there was a perception that I was less commercially minded because I wasn't a man. But again, I think that we spoke at the very beginning that women are often in roles that do tend to have less of a commercial focus. And so I absolutely do see that when someone turns up and they've been a nurse, because that's wildly disproportionately women who are doing that, then suddenly, can I trust you with the annual budget? And I think that's where advisors, where co-founders can fill the gap. You don't have to be the expert at all of the things, but you do need to be able to show that organizationally you have the capability to do the critical things. And so, I will help people build out a financial model and understand their funnel if they come and ask me to do that, because for me it's easy. Yeah. So I think you've just, I don't think it's so much that there's just a perception. I think it's just the pathways into startups sometimes mean that women have less of a commercial background. But if you do have a commercial background, I never had to fight to prove that I did.
Yeah. So it's like numbers don't lie. Numbers and facts don't lie. And then also not being afraid to say, I'm not the expert here, but I'm going to ask somebody who is the expert to help me out with that thing. Yeah, that's great. Last question then. Ashleigh, I'm going to come to you for this one and then we'll wrap up. What is one trait or attribute of being a female founder that you found that you found helped you along the journey as an advantage or leverage, and that you recommend other female founders develop or connect with?
Yeah. Oh, it's a good question. I think kind of what we've been talking about the whole time is that female founders don't do something unless they're 90% sure, or whatever that is. I will say that, and again, I don't have anything to back me in, but with that, I think female founders are out to change massive things, massive issues that are going on, whether it's systemic or gender, whatever that is. And so I think, like, really hone in on that, really hone in on yourself being the expert in your area, being passionate. I also think that we have an ability to be so open-minded. We take feedback. We can spin things into gold in a way that's really amazing. And I think we also have really incredible community. I think, like, really use your community. You have always, like, I'm in a million female founder groups, right? I put things in whenever I need. We support one another. We bring each other up. Use those things. Really use your network, because I don't know if I see that all the time with male founders. We're always, I have this beautiful WhatsApp group, and I didn't even know that they did this, but like they were all posting in it being like, happy launch day, Ash, like congrats, we love it, da da da, all these things. And I was like, what an incredible community. And we all do surveys for each other. We like bounce ideas off one another. We have that, and like really love that and go with that, because that's be the difference as well between, feeling that confidence piece, and having people really, like, we've got a village behind us at all times. And I just think, feel lucky to have that too.
Yeah. So find your village or your tribe that will boost you when that confidence dips. There's people there to kind of keep
Definitely
behind and push forward. I love that. Yeah, and I think that most women do support other women as well. And will complete the survey or sign up for the wait list, or whatever it is, that small act that they can do, they will do. I love that. I saw that, Leila, and this is your in the chat, so if people want to reach out to you, they can. Ashleigh will do the same. That's awesome. I think, if anybody wants to reach me, they can on either Apollo or LinkedIn as well. But I think we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Ashleigh, Jo, and Leila, for your time. That was a really great conversation. I absolutely loved it, and I hope that the people that joined in loved it as much as I did. I'll leave it there.